Rain fell hard over the dusty metal plains of Tarnus 7, a forgotten planet in the outer rim. The wind howled like a beast in pain, carrying sand and ash across the empty junk fields. A bright fireball streaked across the sky. It wasn't a meteor. It was a crashing ship. The wreck hit the ground with a loud explosion. Smoke and fire lit up the night. Inside the broken ship, a figure crawled out, bleeding, limping, but still alive. She was tall, with dark silver skin and sharp blue eyes that glowed faintly even in the smoke. Her name was Vena. The galaxy called her the Phantom Blade. She was the most wanted assassin in known space. No camera had ever caught her face. No bounty hunter had ever brought her in. And now, for the first time, she was running, not to kill, but to survive. She gritted her teeth and dragged her body toward the shadows of the junkyard. Old ship parts, rusted engines, and broken machines lay in mountains around her. She found a hollow space inside a dead freighter and crawled inside. Her breathing was heavy. Blood soaked her side. One of her ribs was broken. Her left arm was burned. She would die here if she didn't find help. But no one helps people like her. She was a killer. A shadow. A monster. Miles away, in a small metal shack, a human man worked late into the night. His name was Eli, a scrap mechanic. He lived alone, fixing old tech for traders and travelers. He had never seen war. He didn't even own a blaster. But that night, while searching for spare parts in the junk fields, he saw smoke in the sky. What the hell? Eli whispered, pulling up his hood against the rain. He grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the crash site, boots sinking in the muddy ground. Most people would run away from danger. But Eli was curious. He always had been. When he reached the wreck, he saw signs of blood but no body. Tracks in the dirt led toward the junkyard hills. Eli followed slowly, unsure what he would find. Then he heard it, a soft growl, like an animal in pain. He lifted his light and saw her. She was curled up inside the metal wreckage, barely conscious. Her body was covered in cuts and burns. Her arm looked broken, but her eyes opened when the light touched her face. And for a second, Eli froze. She didn't look like any alien he'd ever seen. Beautiful, deadly, and clearly not from around here. "Hey, don't move," Eli said calmly, raising both hands. "I'm not gonna hurt you." Vena didn't respond. Her hand slowly reached for the blade hidden at her waist, but her strength failed. She collapsed with a groan. Eli sighed and stepped forward. "You'll die out here if I leave you." She tried to speak, but no words came, just a low breath and a look that said everything. "Don't trust me." He hesitated. This wasn't just some lost traveler. Something about her felt dangerous, but she was hurt, and he wasn't the kind of man who left people to die. With great effort, he lifted her into his arms. She was heavier than she looked. Muscle, not fat. As he carried her back through the storm, he felt her tense in his grip. "If you're gonna kill me," he muttered, "at least wait until I fix you first." Back at his shack, Eli laid her on the workbench. His tools were dirty and his supplies were old, but he did his best. He cleaned her wounds, set her arm, used a heat sealer on her burns. Her skin shimmered like polished steel. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at him with cold, sharp eyes. "Guess you're not much of a talker," Eli said, bandaging her side. "That's fine. I talk enough for 2 people. He placed a blanket over her and left her to rest. As he sat in the other room eating cold beans from a tin, he shook his head. "What the hell did I just bring into my home?" he whispered. Outside, far above the planet, a black ship entered orbit. Inside sat an alien commander wearing red armor. He looked at a hologram of Vena's face. "She crashed here," he said. "Send hunters, alive or dead, bring her back." The signal was sent. The hunt had begun again, and the one man who had given shelter to the galaxy's deadliest assassin had no idea what was coming. The storm had passed, but something far more dangerous was waking up inside Eli's small shack. Vena opened her eyes. Pain shot through her body like lightning. Her arm was wrapped in cloth. Her wounds had been sealed with crude human tech. Someone had helped her. That was rare, and usually a mistake. She sat up slowly, her instincts kicking in. Her hand reached for a weapon. Nothing. Her belt was gone. Her knives were gone. Even the tiny laser blade in her boot was missing. Then she saw him. The human. He was standing at the table, stirring something in a metal pot, wearing old goggles on his head and humming softly. "You're awake," he said without turning. "Good. You lost a lot of blood." Vena didn't answer. Her eyes scanned the room. No traps, no cameras. Just rusty walls, tools, broken machines, and a sleeping drone with a missing leg. She stood, wobbling on her feet. Eli turned around and calmly said, "You try anything crazy, you'll pass out again. I gave you a double dose of stim patch." She narrowed her eyes. "You took my weapons. I also stopped you from dying. Call it even." Vena's mind raced. She had been trained since childhood to kill emotion. But this man, this human, wasn't afraid. He wasn't even curious. He looked at her like she was just another broken machine that needed fixing. "You don't know who I am," she said, coldly. "Nope," Eli replied. "But you didn't kill me in my sleep, so that's a start." She stared at him for a long moment. Then her legs gave out. She hit the ground hard. Eli walked over, crouched, and offered her a hand. "I don't need your help," she hissed. "Yeah, I figured. That's why I'm offering it anyway." She spent the next few hours in silence, sipping a strange human soup and studying his workshop. Eli didn't ask questions. He didn't look scared. He just worked on an old drone and occasionally glanced her way. When she finally spoke again, her voice was quiet. "You should have left me to die," Eli shrugged. "Yeah, maybe. But you were hurt. Bleeding. Shaking. I couldn't just walk away." She tilted her head. "That kind of thinking gets people killed." "I'm not scared of dying," he replied. "Then you're stupid." "Probably." Eli chuckled. "But I'm still alive. That counts for something." Vena looked at him strangely. "You act like you don't care who I am." "I don't," he said. "I care about what you do next." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her wounds still ached and her mind refused to settle. She walked to the corner of the shack where her weapons were locked in a small case. Eli had put a note on it. "We'll talk when you're healed." Vena blinked. No threats, no chains. Just a message. Her whole life people had used her. Trainers, leaders, warlords. They feared her, or tried to own her. But this human treated her like a person, like she was just tired and hurt. She didn't understand it. She stepped outside into the cool night air. Stars shone above in the dark sky. The junk fields were quiet, but her instincts whispered, "Something is coming." She closed her eyes. In her mind, she could already feel them. The hunters. They would find her. Soon. And this human? He would be caught in the storm. The next morning, Eli found her sitting on a pile of metal crates, sharpening a blade she had secretly hidden. "You're not very good at resting," he said. "I don't have time," she replied. "They're coming." "Who?" "The ones who trained me. The ones who want me back. Dead or alive?" Eli folded his arms. "Then we'd better start thinking of a plan." She blinked. "You're not running?" "Nope. I already fixed your arm. Might as well fix your problem too." "You're insane." "Maybe. But I hate bullies. Especially the kind who send armies after one woman." She looked at him carefully. "You really don't know who I am, do you?" "I know enough. You're fast, smart, dangerous, and someone wants you gone. That's enough for me to stand with you." Vena didn't speak. Her fingers clenched the blade. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a weapon. She felt seen. That night, far in orbit, the alien hunters received a signal. Her life sign was confirmed. "She's there," the leader growled. "On a human world. Weak. Injured. They armed their ships. This time, they would not fail, and the assassin, who had never needed anyone, was about to fight for someone other than herself. The signal lit up in the stars, a red pulse on a black screen, silent, deadly. Across the void, ships moved like shadows through space, small, fast, and built for only one thing: capture or kill. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Zarthi grinned as her yellow eyes narrowed on the blinking dot on her display. "She's alive," Zarthi hissed. After all this time, Vena still breathes. The crew around her, war beasts, bounty slaves, cyber hunters, tightened their grips on weapons. Everyone in the room had lost someone to Vena. Every soldier had a reason to want her dead. Zarthi raised a claw. "Lock coordinates on that human world. Ready the stun bombs. No witnesses, no mercy." As the hunter fleet slipped into stealth mode, the galaxy prepared to silence its most dangerous ghost. Forever. Back on Tarnus 7, Eli wiped grease from his hands and tightened the last bolt on an old security drone. The drone sparked, buzzed, then rose into the air. "Still works?" Eli muttered. "That's one." Behind him, Vena stood with her arms crossed, watching closely. Her skin was still pale, but her eyes were focused now, stronger, sharper. "You're building defenses?" she asked. "I don't have laser turrets or deathbots," he said. "But I've got old junk and a little time." Vena's lip twitched, almost a smile. "They'll bring a war team. Then we'll give them a scrapyard welcome." She stepped forward and placed a small silver chip on the table. "This is a hunter command node. I took it off a captain once. It might help you reprogram your junk to recognize enemy signals." Eli raised his brows. "You just carry stuff like this?" "Always." "Good. Let's make them regret chasing. You hear?" They worked together through the night. Vena showed him how to set traps using magnetic pulses and smoke charges. Eli built sensor mines using repurposed cores from dead droids. They turned his workshop into a battlefield, one piece of junk at a time. In the middle of it all, Eli looked at her. "You know," he said, "you're not what I expected." She looked up from a plasma coil. "What did you expect?" "A monster. Cold. Empty. And now?" "You're still dangerous, but not empty." Vena stared at him. "You don't know what I've done. I don't need to." She didn't speak after that, but her hands didn't shake when she worked beside him. Later that evening, as stars blinked above, Eli stood on the roof of his shack, looking up. "I have a bad feeling," he said softly. "Trust it," Vena replied behind him. "They're coming. I feel them too." She walked up beside him. Her face was calm, but her eyes flicked left and right like a wolf scanning the woods. "I should leave," she said. "If I go, maybe they won't destroy this place." "No," Eli said. "They'll come anyway, and I don't run from people like that." "You'd fight for me?" "I already am." She looked away, jaw tight. "I don't deserve it." "Doesn't matter," he said. "Nobody deserves kindness. That's why it's powerful." Vena felt a strange burn in her chest. Something old, something forgotten. Hope. High above, the fleet dropped from stealth. 5 sleek ships entered Tarnus 7's upper atmosphere. They flew low, silent. The night air shimmered with their heat trails. Commander Zarthi activated the hunt signal. Every scanner on board locked onto one life sign. Hers, the most dangerous woman in the galaxy, cornered by humans. Zarthi smirked. "Let's end the legend." The first sign was a humming noise in the wind. Then, the stars blinked. And the first, Hunter Pod dropped like a knife into the dirt near Eli's home. It opened with a hiss, revealing 3 armored beings with laser spikes and scanner helmets. They began moving forward. Vena stood calmly in the middle of the junkyard, her eyes cold again, blades strapped to her legs, pulse pistol at her hip. Her voice was like ice. "Let them come." Eli activated the first trap. A burst of magnetic force sent 2 hunters crashing into a pile of junk. The third turned, just in time for Vena's blade to slide into his neck. She didn't kill him, not yet, but she looked him in the eyes. "Tell Zarthi, I remember her." Then she vanished into the shadows. From the ship, Zarthi heard the report. 3 hunters down, human tech, unexpectedly modified. Vena is resisting. Zarthi's face twisted in rage. "Then burn that town. Kill the human. Bring me her head." But deep in her mind, a question grew. Why is Vena fighting for someone else? It was the first time in years anyone had seen the assassin stand with someone, and that made her more dangerous than ever before. The room was silent, except for the sound of distant thunder and the quiet buzz of broken machines. Vena sat on the floor of Eli's workshop, her back against the wall, a blood-stained cloth wrapped around her arm. Moonlight poured through the cracked window, casting pale light on her sharp features. Across from her, Eli sat at his small desk, watching her, not with fear, not with judgment, just quiet patience. "I wasn't always a killer," she said. Suddenly, Eli looked up, surprised. Vena hadn't spoken much since the attack. She had moved like a ghost, setting traps, checking defenses, saying little. "Then what were you?" he asked gently. She stared ahead, her eyes empty. 6 years old. That's when they took me. From a refugee transport. Pirates hit the ship, sold the children. I was one of the few who survived the first selection. "Selection?" Eli asked, his voice low. Vena nodded. "The Council of 9, they run secret training camps across the galaxy. They look for kids with potential, fast reflexes, no family, easy to break, easy to mold." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small chip, a memory crystal. "I kept this hidden for years. It has files, videos, names, missions I was forced to complete. Every kill, every operation, they turned me into a weapon." Eli didn't speak. He could see it in her eyes now, the pain she buried deep. The child, who never got to grow up, the girl who learned to stab before she could read. Vena's voice cracked. "My first kill was at 9, a diplomat on Trivor Prime. I thought if I did well, they'd let me go home. But there was no home, just more missions, more blood." She looked at her hands. "They taught us that emotions make you weak, that mercy is death. But I never forgot the faces, especially the ones who cried." Eli's voice was soft. "What changed?" Vena looked up at him. "A job. 4 years ago. A high-value target, rich, powerful, dangerous. But when I got there, it wasn't him. It was his daughter, a child. No older than I was when they took me." She clenched her fists. "I refused. For the first time, I said no. I walked away. And just like that, I became the hunted." Eli stood slowly and walked toward her. He crouched down, looking her in the eyes. "They made you into a killer," he said. "But you chose to stop. That matters." She shook her head. "It doesn't erase what I've done, no," he said. "But it proves you're more than what they made you." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she whispered, "I dream about them sometimes, the ones I couldn't save, the ones I had to kill." Eli reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're saving someone now," he said. "Whether you realize it or not." She looked at him, eyes full of questions she had no words for. Outside, the wind picked up again. Clouds gathered. The junk fields groaned in the night. But inside that small, battered shack, something impossible was happening. The galaxy's most feared assassin was finally starting to feel human again. At that same moment, far above the planet, Commander Zarthi watched the memory files from one of her fallen hunters. The footage showed Vena sparing his life, delivering a message. "Tell Zarthi, I remember her." Zarthi's face twitched. "She remembers?" She slammed her fist into the console. "You were never supposed to have a soul," she growled. "You were our blade, our ghost." She turned to her second in command. "Prepare the fire squads. We burn that entire region. Bring the human. I want her to watch him die." Back on the planet, Vena stepped outside into the cool air. She stared up at the stars. Her body ached. Her scars throbbed. But her mind was calm. Eli stepped beside her. "You okay?" "No," she said. "But I know who I am now. And that's more than I had yesterday." Eli nodded. "You're not alone anymore." She glanced at him. "That's the dangerous part." He smiled. For them. In the dark skies, 5 warships began descent. The real battle was coming, but Vena was no longer running. She was standing, her ground, with a human who had seen the assassin, the killer, the ghost, and still chosen to stay. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't fighting just to survive. She was fighting for something worth protecting. The sky changed first. It darkened without warning, turning a deep reddish black. The wind stopped. The stars vanished behind a thick, silent cloud. Eli stepped outside, looked up, and saw them. Hunter ships, 5 of them, shaped like claws, gliding through the sky without a sound. He dropped the wrench from his hand. "They're here." Inside the shack, Vena stood by the wall where her weapons were lined up like old memories. Blades, pistols, shock darts, even a wrist laser. She looked calm, but her hands moved fast, checking charges, strapping gear to her body. "Take cover," she said without looking at Eli. "They won't knock." Before he could reply, the ground shook. Boom! A red blast hit the outer junk fields, vaporizing a hill of old ship parts. Sparks lit the air like fireworks. Another explosion followed, closer. Then, through the smoke, shadows appeared, dozens of them, tall, armored, and silent. The Council's fire squad, trained for only one task, clean elimination. No prisoners, no questions, just fire and silence. Vena stepped outside, standing alone at the edge of the yard. Her long coat whipped in the wind. The enemies stopped. When they saw her, she raised her voice. "Come closer if you dare." Inside the shack, Eli moved fast. He hit a switch, activating the old defense grid they built from junk. High above, towers clicked into life. Crude, spinning drones flew out, carrying motion bombs and flash pulse grenades. He armed the pressure mines buried under the dirt. Then, he grabbed a stun gun. Not much, but it was something. He ran to the rooftop, looking down at her. She stood like a statue, her back to him, facing death, and smiling. The first wave attacked. 10 soldiers sprinted forward with electro spears and flame launchers. They never reached her. The first one triggered a pressure mine, boom. His body flipped in the air. The second was hit by a stun drone. The third reached Vena only to find her blade in his gut. One by one, they dropped. Eli watched in shock. She didn't just fight, she danced. Her movements were fast, smooth, inhuman. She twisted between shots, used one enemy as a shield, leapt over another, kicked a grenade into a crowd. She was unstoppable, until a deep voice echoed through the battlefield. "Enough!" Commander Zarthi stepped out of a hovering pod, tall and terrifying. She wore red command armor, her helmet shaped like a snarling beast. "I trained you, Vena," she shouted. "You were the best. And now, you hide behind humans?" Vena's eyes narrowed. "I'm not hiding," she said. "I'm protecting." Zarthi raised a hand. 5 soldiers burst from the side and rushed toward the shack, toward Eli. Vena's heart stopped. She turned. Too far. Too late. But then, crack! One of Eli's handmade traps launched a pile of scrap metal like a cannon. It crushed 2 attackers. Eli fired his stun gun wildly from the rooftop, hitting one in the neck. The last 2 charged forward. Vena ran, faster than she'd ever moved. 1 second too late. A blast knocked Eli backward. He crashed through the door and hit the floor inside. Vena reached the doorway just as the enemy raised his weapon to fire again. Her blade flew through the air and struck the attacker in the throat. The battle paused. She ran to Eli, blood on her hands. He groaned. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar," she whispered, lifting him to safety. Outside, Zarthi laughed. "Look at you. You've gone soft." Vena stood in the doorway, Eli leaning on her. Her voice was low, cold, final. "No, I've found something worth being strong for. She stepped out and threw a bomb into the enemy squad. The junkyard exploded in color and smoke. The hunters screamed, and the galaxy's deadliest assassin became the defender of a broken world, fighting not for money, not for orders, but for one human who dared to care. Up above, more ships circled. More enemies would come, but they would not find an easy target. They would find Vena the Unbroken, standing beside Eli, the only man who had never flinched. And this war was far from over. Smoke curled through the burning junkyard. Metal creaked. Broken drones sparked on the ground. The bodies of enemy soldiers lay scattered across the dirt, motionless. But the battle wasn't over. Inside the shack, Eli was unconscious, his chest rising and falling slowly. His shirt was soaked in blood. Vena knelt beside him, her hands trembling. She had never been afraid of anything until now. "Don't die," she whispered. "You're the only one who ever saw me as more than a weapon." She pressed a healing patch to his side and wrapped his wound with trembling fingers. The patch glowed weakly. It wasn't enough. A beep sounded in her ear. Her old assassin comlink, still active, still connected. Zarthi's voice came through, sharp and mocking. "He's not worth it, Vena. One human? One broken little man? You'd burn for him?" Vena stood slowly, her eyes cold. "I'd burn the galaxy to keep him safe." She strapped on her last 2 plasma knives, lifted her pistol and walked out the door, not as a killer for hire but as a storm with a name. Zarthi waited at the edge of the field, surrounded by her elite guard. She smiled when she saw Vena, walking alone. "Finally," she said. "No more hiding. Let's finish this." Vena kept walking, silent. "No sniper tricks?" Zarthi mocked. "No escape pod?" Still, Vena said nothing. Zarthi nodded to her guards. "Kill her." But the moment the first one moved, everything changed. Vena vanished in a blur. In seconds, 2 guards dropped, blades in their throats. A third tried to block her with a shield. She leapt over him and drove her knife into his helmet. The others opened fire. She used their fallen bodies as cover, rolled under a blast, and took out their legs. Screams filled the air. Zarthi stepped back, her smile fading. Vena emerged from the smoke. Blood splattered across her face, her eyes glowing with something new. Not rage. Not coldness. Purpose. "You turned me into a ghost," Vena said as she approached. "But Eli made me human again." She raised her pistol and fired. Zarthi blocked the shot with a wrist shield, then lunged. The two clashed, blade against blade, strength against speed. Sparks flew. "You were my best creation," Zarthi screamed. "I'm not yours anymore," Vena growled. They fought across the burning field, knocking over scrap towers, breaking old machines as they slammed each other into walls. Zarthi hit hard, but Vena hit faster. Finally, Vena disarmed her and placed the blade against her old commander's throat. "End it," Zarthi hissed. "You're still a killer." Vena leaned close. "I'm more than that now." She slammed the hilt into Zarthi's head, knocking her out cold. Back at the shack, Eli stirred. His vision blurred, pain clouding his mind. He saw a shape kneel beside him. A hand touched his cheek. "You're still alive," Vena whispered, voice trembling. Eli blinked. "Told you. Not that easy to kill." She laughed softly. It was the first time he'd ever heard her laugh, and it sounded real, like wind chimes in a forgotten place. "You saved me," he said. "No," she replied. "You saved me, long before tonight." By dawn, the battlefield was silent. The last of Zarthi's ships had fled. The war was over, for now. But the galaxy was watching, and word spread fast. The Phantom Blade had returned, but she was no longer killing for coin. She was fighting for something far more dangerous. For someone. Days later, a message flashed across the deep net. A bounty, canceled. A name, cleared. A legend, rewritten. The most feared assassin in the stars was now a protector, and the galaxy trembled at the thought. The stars were quiet again. Tarnus 7, once shaking under the fire of warships and weapons, was now peaceful. The junk fields still smoldered, craters marked the ground, but the sky, once filled with red light and death, was now calm and blue. Inside the small metal shack, Eli sat on the steps, bandages around his chest, sipping warm tea from a dented mug. Beside him stood Vena. But this wasn't the same woman the galaxy had hunted. She no longer wore her assassin armor. No more blades hidden up her sleeves. No more cold mask over her eyes. She wore simple clothes, Eli's spare jacket, old boots, and a quiet smile. She had chosen to stay. "Your name's on every bounty board," Eli said quietly. "Not anymore," she replied, watching the sunrise. Zarthi's defeat was loud. "The council has gone silent." Eli raised a brow. "They'll come back. Someone always does." She nodded. "Let them. I'm not running anymore." He looked at her, unsure of what to say. But she turned to him and spoke first. "I thought I was just a tool, a weapon made to serve, made to kill. But now, I wake up and I hear silence. I see light, and I realize, this planet, this shack, even this stupid tea, it's mine now." Eli grinned. "I like that you called it stupid." Vena chuckled. A soft, strange sound. Not cold, not sharp. Warm. "I used to believe I couldn't feel," she continued, "that any emotion would make me weak. But I was wrong. Feelings don't break you, and they guide you." She paused. "You taught me that." Eli looked down. "I didn't do much." "You did something no one ever did," she said. "You saw me. Not what I could do, but who I could be." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small black chip. Her last kill order, the one that had never been completed. She placed it on the ground and crushed it under her heel. "I'm done being what they made me," she whispered. Later that evening, they walked through the fields of twisted metal together. The sun was low. Light turned the rusted parts golden red. It almost looked beautiful. Children from the nearby colony had come to help clean up. They had heard of the assassin who turned on her masters, of the man who stood with her. They didn't look at Vena with fear, they looked at her with awe. "Is it true?" one little alien girl asked. "You fought off a whole army?" Vena knelt down. "Yes, but I didn't do it alone." She pointed to Eli, who was trying to stop a drone from falling apart again. The kids laughed. The girl asked, "What's your name?" Vena hesitated. That was the first time anyone had ever asked her. Not her code, not her mission. Her name. Eli stepped beside her. Quietly said, "She's called Hope now." The children smiled. It fit her better than any blade. She smiled too. Hope. It felt right. It felt real. That night under the stars, Vena sat beside Eli, watching a small fire burn. "So," Eli said, "what happens next?" She shrugged. "I fix this place, help the colony. Maybe build better defenses in case the next wave comes. And after that?" She looked up at the stars. So many of them. And for once they didn't look like escape routes. They looked like doors. "Maybe. I'll go find others like me. The broken ones. The ones who think they're only good for killing. I'll show them what you showed me." Eli nodded. "That'd be good." They sat in silence. Then she whispered, "You changed me." "No," he said. "You just remembered who you really were." Vena leaned her head against his shoulder. "I don't know what I am yet." He smiled. "You're human enough for me." And so the galaxy's most dangerous assassin, feared across 1,000 worlds, disappeared from bounty lists, and began a new life not in hiding, but in healing, not feared, but finally free. And though the stars would never forget her name, the one she cherished most was the one she never thought she'd earn. Human.